This afternoon, we're interviewing John William Rectenwald from Troy, Ohio. He was born in Fremont, Ohio on July 13, 1934. He served in the United States Army from February 57 to February 59 in Germany and achieved the rank of E5, Sergeant. He was attached to V Corps in Frankfurt, Germany. My name is Robert J. Shook. This interview is being conducted for the Library of Congress and the Miami County Veterans History Project, which is sponsored by Clifford Thompson Post 43 in Troy, Ohio. Thank you for being here today, John. I want to start, though, using your nickname. And so from now on, I'll refer to you as Jack, if it's all right with you.
Yes, it is.
All right, Jack. I'd like for you to start right from the beginning, where you were born, and a little bit about your family and how you got in the military, all the way up. Remember, any details and dates are important. You're on.
Okay. I was born in Fremont, Ohio, July 13th, 1934. My father was a city fireman, and my mother was a homemaker. And I had 3 sisters and myself, my oldest sister, myself, and then 2 younger sisters. And I attended Fremont St. Joseph School from the 1st grade all the way up to the 12th grade. And I graduated in 1952 from Fremont St. Joseph's High School. Played football at Fremont St. Joseph's and got recognized by a couple of colleges, and ended up, I was very fortunate to have a tryout at Notre Dame, and I had some other tryouts, and at Bowling Green seemed to be the fit for me. So I went to Bowling Green on the freshman team and made the freshman team.
That's Bowling Green, Ohio, right?
Bowling Green, Ohio. Bowling Green State University in Bowling Green, Ohio. And we played several of our freshman games, and then in the spring training, going into my sophomore year in spring training, I was injured. And they injured, unfortunately, both of my knees. And back in those times, they could not repair knees like they did. So I got, what you may say, a little bit disgusted with the situation, and I left Bowling Green. And while I was in...
Was that after your freshman year or sophomore year?
It was the beginning of the sophomore year.
Sophomore year.
Yes.
That would have been when?
1953.
53.
Right. In my high school days, I had worked at our local hardware store in Fremont, the Fremont Hardware Store. And it was through the owner of that store that he suggested that he take me to Cleveland to interview with the George Worthington Company in Cleveland, which was at that time the largest wholesale and retail, industrial and hardware supply house in the United States. And that's where I gained employment, and I was there for a while, and my folks got a hold of me over the phone and said that you have this letter from the United States government saying that we want to see you. So I was drafted at that point, and I came home and had the date when I was going to be picked up with a bus from Toledo, Ohio, and taken to Fort Knox, Kentucky.
And this is what year?
It was in 52. Or no, 57, I'm sorry.
57.
Yeah, 57. There was a gentleman that I met, and this story takes place for the next couple of years. So there was a gentleman on the bus that I sat next to going to Fort Dix. And I'm going to save that for after a while. And went to Fort Dix. Basic training, it was, of course, it was all new to all of us. And we were kind of held in abeyance before we were assigned to our particular training unit. We were there about a week, and just kind of a week of wondering what was going to happen and what was going to go on. But finally, we were taken to our group, and we were given our clothing. And surprisingly enough, the clothing fit very well for most of the fellows, anyway. and I do recall going through the line for the so-called shots, and bang bang here and bang bang there, and but then we were assigned to our barracks were old World War II barracks at the time at Fort Knox.
They were all wooden
All
barracks?
wooden barracks, 2-story.
Heated by coal stove? Or
Well, no, they had heat at that time. They had furnace heat by then. So our sergeant, my drill sergeant, was a stern but a heck of a nice guy. He really was, and he did his job well, and he trained us well, and our whole unit. And he picked 13 of us to be a squad to help train some of the other fellows. And we, through all of the courses that we had to go through, and the machine gun thing and everything else, we'd go through there first, and then we'd get back to the sergeant, and he said, "No, I want you to help this group, and I want you to help this group." And so that pretty much was basic training. And to me, it wasn't difficult. It was of course, it was a brand new learning curve, and it was something about yes sir and no sir, and being careful about that. But anyway,
they introduced you all forms of handguns and
oh yes,
rifles
and the old M1, and I did have a little difficulty with that because I'm a lefty. And when at the rifle range, when you shot that M1, you know, they went flying this way, and they used to bang off my helmet. And the clip would come out there, the clip would come out and clear, and that would hit the helmet as well, you know. And the sergeant says, "You got to learn how to shoot right-handed." Well, I was good at left-handed, and I wasn't going to go right-handed, so, but that's the way it was. But I do recall that. It was sometimes it was rather comical. And I didn't want to change because surprisingly enough, I ended up being a pretty good shot. So after basic training, I was assigned to what they called the secretarial school. And I wish I could remember my MOS, but I can't right now. But I went for another 8 weeks at the secretary, and they had another name for it. I don't remember that. I'm really sorry. But I spent 8 weeks learning how to keep track of records, keep track of the soldiers' folders, keep track of the medical history of the soldier, and I learned how to type. And I don't know how I did that, but I got pretty good at that. So.
Not one finger, but full five.
Full, yes, everything. And that comes into play very, very importantly down the line here. So, but after that, we got our orders, and we were assigned. And all this time, this young man that I got on the bus with in Toledo is with me so far, all the way through. Basic training, secretarial school. Our orders were the same, to go to Frankfurt, Germany. We got on the ship at Fort Dix, New Jersey, and we left. I don't recall the exact day that we left, but it was in July. It was nice. It was very, very nice. And the USS Randall was the troop ship that we boarded at that time. And we sailed directly through to Bremerhaven.
Did you leave from Port Hamilton in New York, or in New York, Brooklyn Naval Yard, you said?
Brooklyn Naval Yard.
Brooklyn Naval Yard.
Yes,
yeah.
yes, it was the Brooklyn Naval Yard, as I recall.
How many troops were on board, Jack?
2,500.
Any dependents and like that?
No.
Okay, just
No, there weren't.
troops.
Just troops, right, yes.
What was living on board that ship like?
Well, and at that time, it wasn't too bad because, the Atlantic Ocean in July was rather calm, and we did hit one storm, and it wasn't too rough, but we had quite a few of the guys never been on the high seas before, that we did have some upchucks along the way, so to speak, but other than that, it was a pretty nice cruise.
How was the sleeping facilities and the mess hall facilities, that type of thing?
Well, the sleeping thing, of course, the bays with, I recall, I think it was 6 or 7 up, the bunks.
I mean, 6 guys, a top one,
Right.
top another?
Yeah.
Where'd you end up?
I was about the second one from
Second
the bottom. Yeah.
Easier getting in and out of your bunk then.
Absolutely. And if you got past the snoring, you were able to sleep. I think there was 20 or 25 guys in one of the compartments. I believe that's how many were in there. But it went very well. It really did. And of course, we were allowed up on deck quite a lot during the day.
And how did they feed you down the mess hall?
Mess hall was good. Mess hall was good. Yeah. I've always had a little liking for Navy food. And that comes into play later on as well. So, so we arrived, and then from the train down to Frankfurt.
Well, when you got off the ship in Bremerhaven?
Bremerhaven, yes.
And when was this? Do you remember what date? When you docked?
We were at sea 9 days from when we left. And I'm not real sure of the date.
Well, did you arrive in the night or morning or what?
It was in an afternoon. It was light out when we pulled in. Yeah.
And when this train, was there a train waiting for you there?
Yes, there was.
Where was that located? Right next to the ship? Or
Yes,
what?
it was. It was right in the area of the docking facilities there. So, yeah, very convenient. We got on right away. We got on the train right away, and then we just headed for Frankfurt.
Did it drop people off along the way or what?
I don't recall. I don't think so. I don't recall that they did. But and there were trying to think of how many. Well, they had to because only 14 of us got off at Frankfurt. They had to do that, and I'm sorry I don't recall that, but I'm sure they did along the
And
way.
how long did that trip take?
I'm going to say about 7 hours. I think about 7 hours. Because when we did get into Frankfurt, it was dark out, and they had a couple of deuce and a halfs there for us. Some of that group went to the transportation part of 5th Corps, and some of us went to the Gibbs Caserne. And the Gibbs Caserne was a former Nazi Gestapo headquarters. So this was a real nice place for us to spend our 2 years. It really was. And of course, the food then became excellent because some of the German prisoners and so forth, they ran our mess hall, and they were our cooks. And boy, did we eat good. And then we were taken down to the 5th Corps, and I was assigned to the Adjutant General's section.
Before you get there, a concern was what, like a post or
Yeah,
in the United States or
Yeah,
fort?
like
or-
a post, like I would say like a miniature fort, so to speak. But all of the buildings were there were 5 buildings in there, and they were all like, I would say like individual hotels almost. 3 stories high, and very, very nice. They were very nice. And trying to remember some of the things. They had a repair shop on that location for some of Patton's tanks. And that was, we've got some pictures of the tanks there parked in the street. And let's see what else. We had a dry cleaning facility there, and a laundry facility there. We had a theater there, right on the caserne itself. And the other nice thing about it is all of a sudden guard duty and KP ended. So we spent the rest of our term without guard duty, without KP. And of course that was great.
Were all the people in this Gibbs concern, were they all administrative people from
Yes.
V Corps?
Yes, they were.
So they were all there, so
That's right.
no other troops or no line troops or anything?
No, they were all affiliated with the headquarters. Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about the headquarters building.
Well, the headquarters building was, it was called the IG Farben building, or I can't pronounce it anymore in German because I don't recall, but it was, let's see, 10, 11, 12 stories high, and it was a beautiful building, just a beautiful building, and it was Germany's top paint company, was their headquarters in Frankfurt. And it had elevators, we called them dumb waiters, because the elevators to go to the various floors, we were on the 6th floor, they were moving all the time. And you had to jump on them.
Huh.
So it was quite unique, and we had a lot of fun on them. We'd ride them. But anyway,
So they actually kept moving all the time?
Oh, they moved all the
Rotation?
time. They moved all the time. Yeah. We called them the dumb waiters.
Isn't it interesting? Was this building used for by the German Nazis as a headquarters for anybody?
Yeah. During the war.
For Army or headquarters?
It was headquarters for, I understood it was headquarters for Gestapo and headquarters for the upper, not some of Hitler's top generals and so forth were in that building during the war. Mm-hmm. So
Were there living quarters there or just office buildings?
just office building. Yeah. So I was assigned to the Adjutant General's department. He was a bird colonel in 5th Corps, and
this was now still 57?
yeah, 57, and the latter part of 57, and then going into 58.
Okay.
Yeah. And at first I was assigned to records, and out in the area where most of the sergeants and the corporals and were doing the paperwork and everything else. And then there was 3 offices inside, and the large office, of course, was for the colonel, and there was a smaller one off to the left. Well, my sergeant, who was my superior at that time, he came to me and said, "Come on with me. The colonel wants to talk to you."
Well, what was your rating then?
I would just be a private first class then. Okay. He said, "The colonel wants to talk to you." So I went in his office, and I thought, well, he's going to line me up and shoot me. But anyway, he said, "I want you to take on this job because we can't seem to have anybody that does it right, and Sergeant Kulisek tells me that you're a pretty good typist." So I got probably the best job in the house. I was processing and typing the officer efficiency reports. And Bob, you ought to know about that. So that was my job, and he took me out of the group and he put me in that room because they didn't want anybody to see what was going on. So that's pretty much, I typed the officer efficiency reports. I was in charge of distributing at that time tobacco and liquor. We had ration cards at that time. You might have been familiar with that. And cigarettes, and I was in charge of passing those out. And I also was in charge of making out leave slips.
You must have been a pretty popular fellow with among the enlisted boys, weren't you?
Wow. But anyway, no, that was, it was a job, and everybody did their job. And, our commanding general, he was a 3-star general, Francis W. Farrell, was our commanding general of the 5th Corps at that time. I don't know if he was. And our chief of staff was Brigadier General Joseph W. Stillwell, Jr. And he was something else. We called him Vinegar Joe because he hadn't been around long enough. Or Cider Joe, I mean, we called him.
Wasn't his father of
Oh, yeah, Joseph W. Stillwell,
Sure,
yeah.
Sure.
Yeah, General Stillwell. He was a big man in the Second World War.
Yes.
Well, this was his son,
Okay.
but that was our command post, so to speak.
Well, you had mentioned Patton before. Was Patton's son still overseas at that time?
Gee, I really don't know that.
Okay,
I
so
don't know.
he would have been. He was there when I was there. Yeah.
So, but that was my job, and the colonel, his wife was there, and she liked to go down to Heidelberg to have her hair done. And he had a big old Lincoln over there, and sometimes I'd have to take her down there to get her hair fixed.
Why did
That's
she
why
like-
I say about some of this.
Why did she like to go to Heidelberg? Was that because of the Air Force or what?
I don't know. She just had a hairdresser down there that she really
You
liked.
take her on post at the Air Force or not?
No. But that was another.
Well, you had some
Job.
You had some nice jobs.
Yes, I did. That's why I say I was kind of a little bit embarrassed to do
No,
this.
I think that's fascinating.
But anyway, I did get a couple of commendations from the general and from the 5th Corps and so forth for a job well done, I guess, so to speak.
You were promoted along the way, weren't you?
Yes, yes,
What was your promotion sequence? How'd that move?
Well, when I was at PFC, I started that, and all of a sudden I was a specialist. What was it, 3rd class first? Yeah. And about 9 or 10 months after that, I was promoted to E5.
Were you still a specialist or actual sergeant?
No, it was still specialist.
E5 specialist.
Yeah, E5 specialist, yeah. So.
That's very good.
And then everything came to pass, and papers to come home, and we find out that we're going back on the USS Randall, a whole bunch of, and in the meantime, this young man that got on the bus from Toledo, Ohio, is still with me. I was RE, he was RO, and all through this process, up until we got to Frankfurt, he was on the 2nd bunk, I was on the 1st, I was on the 1st bunk, he was on the 2nd.
Isn't that something?
Yeah, all this time. So now we're going home, we're going to Bremerhaven. He's on the boat, and we stopped in what's the naval base in England? Where they used to stop every once in a while.
Portsmouth?
No. In
I don't know.
England. Southampton?
Okay.
Southampton. Well, they had a big U.S. aircraft carrier there, and I think it was the Eisenhower. But we stopped there, and why we stopped, I don't know, but they let us off the ship, and we just roamed around and got to go on board the aircraft carrier and so forth. And we were there about 3 days. And then got back on the Randall and started.
They didn't load any troops on the Randall or anything like that?
No. So we started home, and we hit the Atlantic Ocean, and so did all the storms in the area. But that was quite a deal.
So it became a rocking boat, huh?
Yes, it did. This way and this way and this way.
Talk about the lifelines they put up when that happens. Did they have lifelines up? They string them around when you went to.
Yeah, but you weren't allowed on deck either.
No, but I mean inside even they had them because so you wouldn't. Of course, you had railings too.
Yeah, we had railings. I don't recall that,
Okay.
that they did that, no. But they had a lot of galvanized pails and garbage pails around, I'll tell you that.
I suspect they
Quite a few.
I suspect a lot of people did not go in the mess hall then.
Well, that was another very, very nice thing that happened to me. I had made sergeant, and the mess sergeant came to me and says, "You need to be in charge of the breakfast." And I had a key to the mess hall. So that worked out pretty good. It's amazing how many buddies you have when you have certain privileges and or keys. But the Navy always fed us well, I'll say that. They had good food.
Were there to keep you busy while you were working, waiting? Did a little few card games, things like going on?
Oh, sure. Oh, yeah. A little rolling the dice here and card games and so on. And yeah. And it seemed like the trip wasn't as long as we thought it was going to be. It just got over with. And the closer we got to home, I think the storms had died down quite a bit. One of the things that I remember, and I think, I'm not sure, but I think every soldier on that ship had tears in their eyes when they saw that Statue of Liberty. Every single one of them. When we saw the girl, the lady.
What an experience when you come back like that. Tell me now, did you land at Fort Hamilton or again Naval Brook Yard?
Yeah, we went to Brooklyn Naval Yard.
Yeah,
Yeah.
And then you separated
Dix.
Hamilton?
No, we processed out at Dix.
You went to Dix,
Yeah.
okay.
And then we actually got the train ride home. And guess who's on the train with me? The same guy from Toledo. We got off the train at, it wasn't Fremont, it was Sandusky, I think. And my dad picked me up, and me and Charlie, and came to Fremont, and I got Charlie in the car, and I took him to Toledo.
His name was Charlie.
Charlie Robidoux.
Do you still see Charlie today?
Oh, hear from him, yeah, occasionally.
Isn't that
We
great?
talk. Yeah, yeah. But he went through the entire process.
That's fascinating.
It is, yeah, when you think about it. So,
Mainly because the names were, the last name.
yeah, R-O-R-E, see, so. And then at that time when I arrived home in Fremont in 1959, there was quite a bit of rain and our town was flooded. And the main street downtown, and as I mentioned before, my father was a city fireman and he asked me to hang around for a couple of weeks, and we got in boats and picked people up, and I worked in my hometown for a couple of weeks, and then I went back to Cleveland, Ohio to my job.
Well, you was flooded from the river went through there? Or?
Sandusky River.
That's what I was thinking, that's Sandusky River.
Yeah.
So you helped with rescue people. They got home and Dad put you to work, help rescue.
Yes.
That's fascinating. Yeah.
So that's about it.
Well, now you got home. Tell us a little bit about what you did, went back to work as far as meeting your wife, and what happened from then on. And then you went back to work where?
Well, I went back to work. I went back to Cleveland to the company that I had left, and I was in training there to be in industrial sales. And so I went back in the training process, which was filling orders and so forth. And pretty soon I got called down to the offices of the sales department, and I was put on a desk in the sales department. and handling phone calls, people placing orders. And when one of the salesmen retired, I was put out on the road, representing the George Worthington Company as an industrial salesman. And there was this sort of very nice young lady there at Worthington's that we met, had a couple dates, and got married. And
that was when?
in 1961, we had a son, and unfortunately, in 1986, she got sick and she passed away.
Too bad. Sorry to hear that.
And I had, through a family that we've known for years, etc., and there was a young lady in that family that I knew that was younger than I by 7 years, and we just sort of gelled and got together, and we got married, and she had 3 children, and who we just get along famously. And her name is Nancy, and we've been married now 26 years.
Oh, wonderful.
So, and we live in the beautiful town of Troy, Ohio.
Well, how did you end up in Troy, Ohio? You talked about it must have been your job or something then, huh?
Well, what took place then is when Nancy and I got married, she was worked for IBM. She was a senior consultant with IBM, and that took her to a lot of places. And she ended up for a while in Charlotte, North Carolina. So I left my job and went to Charlotte, North Carolina, and got a job not in sales, but on the other side of the desk, I got a job in purchasing. So from Charlotte, North Carolina to Columbia, South Carolina, and then she had to come back up to Ohio, and the first grandchild was born, and they lived in Tip City. So guess why we ended up in this area? But that's why we came back up here.
So actually retirement more than...
No, she still did a thing.
She's still with IBM?
IBM.
And what did you do then when you
And
came to Troy?
I got a job as a purchasing manager for Litton Electronics, if you remember Litton Electronics. And that's where I retired from. So.
Very good. That's fascinating. Is there anything else you want to add? Any of your children that then were in the military or anything?
Actually, just Nancy's one son, or our one son, he was in the reserves for a while.
Okay.
And other than that, that's it.
Well, Jack, you've had a great military career. It's been fun listening to you and enjoy your talk. I'd like to have you to say to us and tell us what was the lasting impression of military service. What did it do for you? What's the impression left upon you?
The impression it left on me was that I was just extremely, extremely glad that it happened. And every young man, as far as I'm concerned, needs to see that, and he needs to go through that. He needs to be part of this country and what this country is all about, and the men who have given to this country. They've got to know that. Unfortunately, I think that in the school system, they don't even know anything about World War II anymore, and it's sad. And our country is built on just the giving of the men and women in the service. And I'm appalled that we don't look at it that way anymore. I'm really appalled. So,
Well, Jack Rectenwald, thank you so much for your contribution on behalf of the citizens of the United States, the Library of Congress, and the Clifford Thompson Post 43, the Miami County Veteran History Project. We thank you for your contribution to the service of your country.
and we thank you